The sun hung low in the sky over the dusty outskirts of a small town in rural Texas, casting long shadows across the wooden porch of the Demon's Den, a weathered biker bar that had stood as a local landmark for decades. The air was thick with the scent of leather, gasoline, and the faint tang of beer that lingered from the night before. Inside, the walls were adorned with patched vests, faded photographs, and a large emblem bearing the name, Demon's Motorcycle Club, its black and red design a symbol of brotherhood and defiance. The open double doors revealed a group of rugged men, their arms sleeved with tattoos, standing in a loose semicircle, their expressions a mix of amusement and curiosity. At the center of the scene stood a young boy, no more than 8 years old, his blonde hair tousled and his blue jeans torn at the knees from a day of rough play. He wore a red hoodie under a denim jacket, a miniature version of the outfit sported by the bikers around him. In his small hands, he gripped a wooden stick, holding it like a sword, his stance wide and determined as he faced the towering figures. The men, clad in black leather vests emblazoned with patches reading, President, Sergeant at Arms, and other titles, watched him with a blend of sternness and reluctant admiration. The boy's eyes sparkled with a fearless energy, undeterred by the intimidating presence of the club members. Among them, circled in red by an unseen hand, was Jake Iron Callahan, a man in his late 40s with a weathered face and a graying beard that framed a scar running down his left cheek. As the club's president, his word was law, and his broad shoulders carried the weight of leadership. He stood with his arms crossed, a faint smirk tugging at the corner of his mouth as he observed the boy. The others, Big Tom, a bald giant with a long beard, Rusty, the wiry mechanic with a perpetual scowl, and a handful of younger members, shifted their weight, some stifling laughs, others exchanging glances. The boy, whose name was Ethan, had wandered into the bar earlier that afternoon, drawn by the rumble of motorcycles and the promise of adventure. His mother, a single parent working a double shift at the diner down the road, had no idea he'd slipped away. Ethan had heard the stories about the demons from the kids at school, tales of wild rides, secret meetings, and a code of honor that set them apart from the law-abiding townsfolk. To him, they were heroes, larger-than-life figures straight out of the comics he devoured under the covers at night. "All right, kid," Jake said, his voice a low rumble that carried the weight of years spent barking orders. "You think you can take us on with that stick? You're gonna need more than guts to impress this crew." Ethan tightened his grip on the stick, raising it higher as if it were a knight's lance. "I'm not scared of you," he declared, his voice cracking with a mix of bravado and nervousness. The men chuckled, the sound rolling through the group like thunder. Big Tom stepped forward, his massive frame casting a shadow over the boy, and crouched down to his level. "You've got spirit, I'll give you that," Tom said, his deep voice softening. "But this ain't a playground. What's your name, little man?" "Ethan," he replied, standing a little straighter. "And I'm gonna be a biker one day, just like you." The declaration drew a round of laughter, but there was no malice in it. Rusty leaned against the doorframe, lighting a cigarette and shaking his head. "Kid's got dreams bigger than his britches," he muttered, exhaling a plume of smoke. Jake raised a hand, silencing the group, his eyes narrowing as he studied Ethan more closely. "Where's your folks, Ethan?" Jake asked, his tone shifting to something more serious. The boy hesitated, kicking at the wooden floor with the toe of his sneaker. "My mom's at work. She won't care if I'm gone for a bit." Jake exchanged a glance with Tom, a silent agreement passing between them. They knew the town well enough to recognize a latchkey kid when they saw one. Single parents, struggling to make ends meet, were a common sight in these parts, and the demons had their own history of looking out for the underdog. Still, letting a child run wild wasn't their style, not when trouble could find him faster than they could ride. "Tell you what," Jake said, stepping forward and resting a heavy hand on Ethan's shoulder. "You put that stick down, and we'll show you around. No fighting today, but maybe we can teach you a thing or two about bikes." "Deal." Ethan's face lit up, and he nodded eagerly, dropping the stick with a clatter. The men parted to let him through, leading him toward a row of gleaming motorcycles parked just outside. The machines were a sight to behold, chrome glistening in the late afternoon sun, engines polished to a mirror finish. Ethan's eyes widened as he ran his hands over the leather seat of a Harley, his fingers tracing the intricate designs etched into the metal. "Careful now," Rusty warned, though his tone was gentler than before. "That's my baby you're touching." Treat her right, and she might let you sit on her someday. The group spent the next hour showing Ethan the basics: how to check the oil, the importance of a tight chain, the roar of an engine when it's tuned just right. He listened intently, his questions endless, and the bikers found themselves warming to his enthusiasm. For a moment, the hard edges of their world softened, replaced by the simple joy of passing down knowledge to a willing pupil. As the sun began to dip below the horizon, casting an orange glow over the fields, Jake's phone buzzed in his pocket. He stepped aside, answering the call with a gruff, "Yeah." The voice on the other end belonged to Marla, the diner waitress and Ethan's mother, her panic palpable even through the static. She'd just gotten off shift and realized her son was missing. Jake hung up and turned back to the group. "Looks like we've got a mama bear on the warpath. Ethan, your mom's looking for you. Time to head home." Ethan's face fell, but he nodded, following Jake back toward the bar. The others watched in silence, a rare stillness settling over them. When Marla arrived, her car skidding to a stop in a cloud of dust, she rushed out, her apron still tied around her waist. Her eyes were wide with worry, but they softened when she saw Ethan safe, surrounded by the intimidating figures she'd always feared. "Thank you," she said, her voice trembling as she pulled Ethan into a hug. "I didn't know where he'd gone. I should've." "No need to explain," Jake interrupted, his expression unreadable. "He's a good kid. Just keep an eye on him. This ain't always a safe place for a boy his age." Marla nodded, gratitude mingling with exhaustion. She took Ethan's hand and led him to the car, glancing back once with a small, uncertain smile. The bikers watched them drive off, the taillights fading into the dusk. Back inside the den, the mood shifted as the men returned to their drinks and their stories. But Ethan's visit lingered in the air, a brief interruption in their rough-hewn lives that left an unexpected mark. Jake sat at the bar, nursing a beer, his mind drifting to his own childhood, days spent wandering the same backroads, dreaming of freedom. Maybe, he thought, the kid had a point. Maybe there was something worth passing down after all. The night deepened, the neon sign buzzing faintly overhead, and the demons settled into their routine. But for Jake, the image of Ethan wielding that stick like a warrior stayed with him, a reminder that even in their hardened world, a spark of innocence could still find a way in. Outside, the crickets began their chorus, and the open road stretched endlessly into the distance, waiting for the next chapter to unfold.